Okay. You're welcome. Welcome
Hello.
today to session I reach high, session 25.
Wow.
I just thought about it now. That's actually, well, technically 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 6 months every Sunday. Coming live
Wow.
on Instagram. This was,
Wow, 6 months. Are you serious?
yeah, 24 weeks, or at least 24
Yeah.
weeks.
When did we start? Was
Well,
it March then? Must have been March.
I'm not sure, but definitely 6 months. And this was meant to be okay. Let's just do this for a few weeks and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Now it's difficult to stop. We don't know how. We don't know how to stop.
Wow.
You know,
25 sessions.
yeah, 25 sessions, but technically 24 weeks of doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 months. It's a long time.
So thank you for those that have joined.
Yeah, and I've continued to be part of this, whether just to encourage us or just because you enjoy being part of it. But thank you all for being, a part of this blue so far.
Yeah.
Lockdown life. Thank you for being part of every
Your
session.
help, your support.
Yeah.
Your
yeah,
encouragement.
yeah, every step of the way. A lot of stuff goes into these guys, by the way. I mean, behind the scenes, there are some things that have to happen. Every Sunday morning to actually get the text right. Well, it's been good. We've enjoyed having the conversations. And getting feedback like the one we got last week when the lady said that she needed just this conversation.
Yeah.
For us, that really gave a meaning and purpose to the whole Blue Sofa experience. So thank you for being part of it, and we hope that we can continue to bring some interesting and exciting conversations uh, to your home or wherever you're
Wherever
watching.
you are.
Yeah. All right. So today we have, as always, an interesting, I think, anyway, an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
And we hope that you guys will be part of it. Because as we try to do this, we try to make it conversational. So your input, your thoughts would be beneficial. Fungs, do you want to introduce the topic?
Okay, so today we're talking about mental health. So the title of this was My Mental Health, My Wellbeing.
Yeah.
And when you think about mental health, we there is a variety of mental health problems. So it varies from the kind of less severe type, so maybe depression, anxiety, etc., to the more severe types where psychosis is involved, and so on. So there's a variety of mental health problems. And did you know that actually mental health problems are quite common? So the statistics suggest that 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 people will have a mental health problem at some point in their life. And that is as I said, there's a range of mental health problems. Some are severe and some are not as severe. So that's a serious statistic,
1 in 4.
1 in 4.
Wow. And now, how does that, in terms of the BME, how does that?
So it's difficult to see. So the statistics I saw were about kind of people that are admitted into hospital with a mental health problem. And it suggested that actually BME people are overrepresented in the number of people that are require treatment for severe mental health illness, mental health problems, and particularly Black men.
Yeah.
They're quite overrepresented.
Yeah. Is there any particular reason given?
No, there's a variety of reasons. They say kind of racism plays into it, socioeconomic experiences plays into it. Also stigma plays into it. And also the Black men are more likely to kind of get this treatment or get support when they're desperate. So it's mainly through the criminal justice system. And also the statistics looking at the number of BME people or Black people that are have a drug abuse problem is actually quite high as well.
Yeah.
So one of the things I was looking at was suggesting that if we don't seek help early, then the help that's required is more help is required because the mental health problem gets worse.
Yeah.
And so kind of early intervention is better. And there are some programs out there that are looking to try and help that as well.
Yeah. And I guess that somehow the criminal justice system as well, in some cases, actually, so for a BMA person, when they're exhibiting these traits, they're quickly sectioned in a sense, and it almost becomes systemic in the sense that they're just within the system, in and out, and there's really no room for full recovery because it's deemed as well, somehow there's a criminal path to it.
Yeah. So I mean, like some of the things I was reading was saying that even in the criminal justice system, people are less likely to be diagnosed with a mental health problem and with learning disabilities. So they're overrepresented. So if the mental health problem is not kind of supported, helped early on, then they're more likely to exhibit kind of violent traits, etc. Because it's almost like a cry for help, really and truly.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, because thinking about it, growing up in Nigeria, actually, very rarely, particularly when we're in school, very rarely do you have people diagnosed with mental health conditions. We call it all kinds of things, but very rarely do you hear of anybody dealing with psychotic episode. Even though there must be, but we just put them within one same category, and I think even within the church as well. And I guess that's why this conversation is quite important in terms of so I mean how should the church relate? I mean, what is God's perspective on this? And I was thinking about it. We have a guest that we're going to bring on in a few minutes. Because if I have a gash, if I hurt myself, or break a bone, or I'm diagnosed with a physical condition, people are more likely to be sympathetic and understanding. But on the contrary, with mental health, there's a way we perceive it, even within Christendom, and I think it then goes. It then means that a lot of situations like that go undetected because nobody wants to be identified in that way. Perhaps maybe the question we should ask, the audience. What's that question again? We have a question.
Yeah. So, if you had a mental health problem, would you speak to someone about it? Would you seek help? So, question: yes, no. If you had a mental health problem, would you seek help? Because I know some people may not want to identify that they have a mental health problem, but if you did, would you seek help for it? Yes, no, hands up, hands down. And if no, why?
Yes, okay.
And if no, why? So what about you? Would you?
I would. I would. But to be truthful though, I guess let's hear what people say, because I have a point, a perspective on that. So
eventually on YouTube as well. So if you had a mental health problem, would you seek help? Would you seek some support for it? So interesting. So we've got 2 males, 1 female. Probably
not.
Probably not. He tends to not ask for help. Okay. Yes, you'd seek help. Okay. So so the question that we're asking for those that have just joined is, if you had a mental health problem, would you seek help? Would you seek support? Would you call out for help? So answer yes or no.
Rachel on YouTube says, "I'll try."
I would try. You can say no, if it's no, I'm sure for some people it would be a no.
Yeah, yeah. So I think for me, it would be a yes. But like lockdown, like you said, I mean, it would be an eventual yes, and I'll be very selective in who I speak to, obviously. And I don't think that should be the case, because I mean, the reason why I'll be selective, because again, there's that stigma almost like attached to it. If I had, like I said, if I broke a bone, or had some other conditions, I wouldn't be as selective as I would if it was a mental health condition. And that is the real conversation that we're having. Why should we treat or deal with such situations or conditions separately from any other health condition?
So with regards to like the stigma, and you were kind of restricting who you'd speak to, what do you think is the main, like, what is it that you're trying to prevent? Is it an image that you're trying to protect, or what is it?
No, I think it's a public perception. It's the way people, it's the way we receive and deal with people that have mental health challenges. But yeah, so that would be the thing for me. Right. So any other? How about yourself?
I'd seek help, but I don't know, maybe because I have been involved in the counselling ministry.
Okay, but
prior to that, would I seek help? I think I'd probably speak to someone, probably in church. I'd speak to someone in church. I wouldn't speak to my parents because let's just say that would not be that would not go down well.
There'll be a lot of binding and losing.
Yes, exactly. So it wouldn't be my parents. But I'd speak to someone in church, like probably like an older woman who I felt I could speak to.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. But
why again would you be that selective?
Why would I be selective? I think because I'd like to speak to someone who I think can help me. So I think it's just more about, if I think that person can help me, then I would. So, and I guess if I'm going to speak to someone, then I'd want it to be someone that I felt I could be open with. And so I think, I wouldn't necessarily go to a total stranger. I'd probably go to someone that I think, I can speak to. Maybe I've had a conversation before, and I think that they would listen. So I think that would be it for me.
Okay. So another question, actually, for the viewers as well as for ourselves: if it got into the public domain that you were dealing with mental health conditions, how would you feel about that? I mean, how would you feel if you got into public domain that you were dealing with mental health conditions? Yeah.
But so someone said there's a Nollywood movie called Sylvia. Oh yes. And it captures the African mindset of dealing with mental illness. That film, if you've seen that film on Netflix, isn't it? Yeah, that's true.
So please, your response to that question, if it became public knowledge that you were dealing with mental health conditions, how would you react to that?
But I wonder, would it change depending on the type of mental health problem? So something like depression, for example, is relatively common.
But most people the majority of the people don't make those distinctions.
No, but I don't know. I don't know. So for example, the reason why I say different, so something like depression and then something like, I don't know, bipolar condition, or I suppose any mental health problem, perhaps if you're using medication, there might actually be quite a stigma associated with that.
Yeah.
And you may not want to reveal that you're taking medication. I may not want to reveal that I was taking medication.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying, and that's the point actually. But the other point is that, you probably are more aware of this because you have a medical background, sort of. but most Joe blogs down the road, or even myself, I mean, I don't know these differences.
Yeah. Okay.
So we only just categorize people in just in one way.
Yeah.
So I guess again another question. I mean, we're kind of bombarding us with questions here. I mean, are we aware of the different variations of mental health conditions?
Problems.
Yeah. Are we aware of these different variations? Any thoughts from you guys before we?
So there are a number of mental health problems. So are you aware of the different types that there are? People. So someone said people tend to be more compassionate about towards people who have depression rather than the way they stigmatize schizophrenia.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. I do think that's true. I think kind of schizophrenia, bipolar, affective disorder, or those. I think
psychotic.
Yeah, so the psychotic kind of conditions.
Yeah.
I think there's more stigma associated with them. Why? I wonder if it's to do with I don't know, fear, or perhaps people thinking that there's more potential for them to do harm to others. I'm not sure.
Is this the point that we're bringing our guests?
I think, yeah.
Because some of these questions we actually don't have answers to them. So we might as well just bring someone in.
Yes.
Who would be able to kind of steer our conversation in a very, very constructive way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Brilliant. So, Sister Toyin, Scanning Young Minds, you want to join us, please?
Yeah. No, you're sending. Hold on. Sorry, we need to get this right. You picked on
wrong one.
Wrong button. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to invite our guest. Do you want to talk about the guest?
Okay, so our guest is a very wise lady. She so her name is Toyin Akinfolarin, or Miss Toyin, or Sister Toyin, and she has a ministry essentially focusing on mental health and well-being. She is a mental health practitioner, and she's doing great work. She regularly has Zoom sessions focusing on different areas of mental health problems. So please, let's welcome Mrs. T. Hello, Mrs. T. How are you?
Hi.
I'm all right, thank you. How are you? How are you, Pastor Banks?
Hi. Good to see you.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. So for those on YouTube, we have a guest on Instagram Live, and we hope you guys can hear. If you can hear us on YouTube, just say something so you can, and you can hear our guest on Instagram as well. Until there's a platform that can allow us connect both, media together. We would have to go with this arrangement for now. Yeah.
So, sis, do you want to kind of give us a bit of background about you? Tell us about yourself.
So I've got 20 plus. My name is Toyin Akinfolarin. You said that already. I got 20 plus years working with people with various mental health problems. So I work with the NHS, but I'm also an emotional health and life coach. I'm also like a trauma-informed care specialist, emotional health navigator. I think I should leave it there. Extensive study on mental health. So let's leave it.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Could you project your voice a little bit so we can?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Can you hear me better now?
We can, just so that people on YouTube can as well.
Okay, I should have used my speakers. What about now?
Yeah, it's
fine.
Right, yeah.
That should be fine.
Okay.
Okay, so we've just been talking about kind of the stigma associated with mental health problems. And so I'm sure you're keenly aware of that. So I don't know, do you want to share kind of your experience in that area?
Yeah, I was having a good laugh in the background, actually. Yeah, because it was quite interesting. I mean, very brilliant stuff that you spoke about. I just wanted to add, I read the bit about, I saw people's comments about how people view those who have schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and other illnesses, and how they view people with depression. And I know that usually when people have depression, because of the way depression plays out, which is almost like, loss of hope, being flat and all that, it's very easy to kind of identify with that and want to be there for somebody. However, what I wanted to draw out is two things. Depression itself can actually become a psychotic illness. So if depression is not handled on time, someone is clinically depressed, they can actually become psychotic, which means you will then see the symptoms that you would see in other psychotic illnesses. I also wanted to say someone can have negative symptoms from having schizophrenia and others as well. So you might actually see the downside, like the self-neglect in someone who's got schizophrenia as well. And obviously with bipolar, it's both ways. Someone gets highs and they get lows, which means they're depressed one time and they're manic. So they can also go through that kind of phase. So I was just going to say, it's all like mental illness is very wide and very interesting, but symptoms can vary and can mimic one another.
So am I right in saying then that, the average person like myself can be excused for not knowing these different variations, and we just put everybody in the same category?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, the definition of mental health itself, is any disorder of the mind. So you putting everything under the same umbrella, it's not really, you haven't done anything wrong. That's what a lay person would do. To be honest with you, to a large extent, diagnosis is more for the professionals who are treating than for the person suffering the illness. And the reason I say that is people might have different diagnoses, but the experiences they get might be the same. So individuals need to talk about their experiences. However, professionals need the diagnosis for a few reasons. So, for example, there are certain diagnostic tools, books, or things like ICD-10 or tools that professionals use. And it basically tells you if someone has so and so symptoms, this is what they're likely to have. And that informs the kind of treatment that would work for that person based on what research has shown and what has happened in the past. So diagnosis is more for a professional to give them an idea of what sort of treatment to go for.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. With regards to the stigma, so why do you feel people are unwilling to kind of speak out about their mental health problems?
I think Pastor Banks already touched on that a little bit. When you spoke about the fact that people can't see the wound, people don't see what you're going through. People have called it different names. People have trivialized it. People have judged other people. And obviously there's stigma, and then there's not enough knowledge out there, not enough education out there. Because if you think historically about mental health, it used to be the asylum, the locking people away. So for that reason, even though mental health has been around for a long time, the stigma came with the kind of treatment, the lack of understanding and education around it. And so that stigmatization is like institutionalized it's everywhere, basically. It's just that it's worse, obviously, in certain parts of the world where it's only viewed as like a spiritual or demonic activity. So there's a lot of reasons why people won't speak out. People also don't want to be, so there's also, because awareness is a huge thing. So that I know people who have reached out to me before thinking that The minute I say something is wrong with me, I'm going to be locked up in a hospital somewhere, behind closed doors, in straight jackets, and so they refuse to speak about it.
Yeah.
People think they're going to be sectioned. So there's so much of that going on. It's a lot, but I'd say majorly it's fear of the unknown, fear of what people will say, fear of what will happen to me, especially when people have families. They're worried. Am I going to be taken away from my family? So I just think what you're doing today is brilliant, to bring some sort of education, insight for people to understand better.
Yeah. Now, but in terms of, so that's the education bit. And so a lot of us, so the person dealing with the condition, one of the reasons, like you said, is fear, all kinds of fears. But I, on the other side, wanting to help, wanting to identify with the person. So there's the education bit. But what other way can I be much more accommodating and understanding of the person's situation?
So there are a few things. First, you have to be a very good listener, because sometimes, and you have to take yourself out of their situation, and I'll explain why. Because a lot of times when people are telling you things, you're trying to imagine what they're telling you, and you offer your opinion or your idea. But when someone's got mental health problems, you actually need to listen to them unbiased and not judge. Because there's certain things they might say to you. In your head, it might be like, why should that be a problem? But it might actually be a problem for them. So there's that. Asking the person, what do you need to ask the person what they want you to do? What do they want from you, as opposed to just offering what you think should happen. And you need to be careful about the kind of advice you give, because there are times when people are talking to you about their mental health. They just want someone to listen. They want to pour out. They want to offload. But if we're quick to start giving solutions, we're going to shut them down. And there's sometimes that people just want you to be there for them, so that when they're fearful, they can call you. There's sometimes people have very good insight into their mental health, but they need that extra support. So that's why I said it's important to find out what the person wants you to do, how they want you to help, how they think you can help. And so you have to really let them lead. It has to be the person-centered, whatever you're going to do. And obviously, on the side, in your own way, pray for them, share things that you find information unbiased, with them. Most important thing is, don't be judgmental, don't be opinionated, just, don't be subjective, just be objective, like, okay, just listen to what they have to say.
Thank you. So, like with regards to let's say our faith, we spoke about kind of stigma, and I said that if I needed to speak to someone, I wouldn't speak to my parents, because in my parents' thinking would be that it's a spiritual issue, and whilst some things may be spiritual, there's also physical or emotional issues associated with mental health. So how have you seen that play out?
So hold on, before you actually input into that, I think there are two dimensions here, really. I think there's the element of the faith, right? Which, you're going to speak into shortly. But then, isn't that also to do with culture a bit?
Yeah.
Because, and I think that's very important can we approach, those two angles and see if someone was a Christian, right? And, of a different context or culture, and if someone was not a Christian but of Nigerian, whatever, so how would that?
So I'll be honest with you, I have met lots of people of African origin, particularly Nigerians, or other countries too, who have actually said that the reason they don't speak about their mental health in church is because they're told to go and pray. It's seen as a demonic activity, However, they are then feeling fear because they're like, okay, so I'm possessed, something is going on, but what would the help be? And people are generally very afraid of that because it means, it means so many things to many people. But I would say this is such a huge topic. I'm even looking at which dimension to take it from. But let me just say that people from BME background have huge problems speaking about mental health in the church because of because they just don't want to be seen as possessed and demonic, and they think that people would would
judge them
for it. People would treat them in a certain way, people would run away from them, and all of that. Whereas when I see the opposite in clients that I've worked with that are from other backgrounds, Caucasian, different places, they seem to have a more open mind about speaking about it and praying for healing, about mental health, because they don't feel so much as judged as like, oh, it's you're demonized, you're possessed. They don't feel that way. So it's very different, to be honest with you. So that's why you probably get someone, you would get someone who's of another background that is not BME, actually, even if in a leadership position, actually speak about the fact that they've got a mental health problem, they're dealing with it, they're praying about it. However, from BME, you will never get that because you just can't say your mental health problem. So, yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm trying to understand the roots of this, because when I think about scriptures, right? I mean, we see Jesus heal all kinds of people. We see him cast out demons. We see him heal all kinds of things. And there was never, there is no indication or pointer from Jesus to say that this category of illnesses should be treated differently. So, do you have any thoughts as to why the church might have made that distinction? Because if I say, well, I have someone has a tumor of sorts, everybody will be quick to gather around and pray. But the other one is treated differently.
I actually wish, but I always think about, the story where the guy was possessed and Jesus cast him into the swines and it went to the bottom of the sea.
Yeah.
And I think that's the sort of thing that people read. But then when I think about that, I also think about people who had leprosy in the Bible and received healing and things like that.
Yeah.
So I really don't know where the origin is, but I am not so sure the origin of the way Christians approach this is actually anything to do with the Bible. I think it's more cultural, because there's a lot coming out these days about how not separating culture from faith properly. Like, your culture has actually transitioned into your faith, and so there's a lot of culture in the way that you approach your faith. But I don't actually think it's the Bible. I think it's more cultural.
Okay. So essentially, then, those of us that form those perceptions or those views, we see more through the lenses of our culture rather than the lenses of our faith.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. So next time your parents is not because they're binding and losing, it's because of the way they've been brought up to see those things.
Pastor Banks, can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
So you remember young Samuel in the Bible?
Yes.
And he had a voice. So hearing voices is one of the symptoms of mental health.
Yeah.
So he heard a voice 3 times. He kept going back and forth to Eli. And the 4th time, Eli said to him to respond to the voice and say, "Here I am, I'm listening."
Yeah.
And I think this is a huge question that I've asked people. If someone's child walked up to them, keeps waking up during the night and keeps saying, "Someone's calling me in my sleep."
Yeah.
In the days that we're living in now,
yeah,
and with the cultural background, what do you think would happen?
Well, actually, we're the ones asking the question here.
So for those that have children, or even if you don't have children, yeah. So if your son wakes up multiple times in the night and says, "Someone's calling my name," what would you do?
Well, I think on a very, so let me try and get the balance right between the practical and the spiritual. But the reason why that story is a bit of a different one is because Samuel had a mentor who understood how God would normally speak, right? Now, in the absence of that, it's one of two things. It would be either the parent starts to bind and loose and believe it's demonic, and telling the person not to answer, because if you answer, you might go crazy, or the parents will book an appointment to see a consultant, and that's actually a very interesting perspective, because what you're also saying, I mean, I think it's getting the balance right, really, because we know people that have said they've heard voices about God calling them to commit certain acts, but it's because of psychotic episodes of sorts. So how do we get that balance right?
Okay, so Pastor Banks, I've been doing like a lot of white study recently, and I'm doing a lot about spiritual health and mental health. And one of the things that, if we think about giftings of people being gifted, there are people who are actually, so gifts come in any dimension. So let's take like the ability to hear is a gift, right? So if someone is very gifted, say let's say there's a young child that is very gifted, you've got the ability to hear. Now, and I'll tell you, let me give you a background first. Hearing voices is not something that the mental health system has been able to crack either. In mental health, they're not able to stop the voices. They'll teach you distraction techniques. So you either have something playing in your ear, or you think about so many distraction techniques, or you have medication, which doesn't stop the voices. It actually subdues you so that you can't respond to the voices. So the voices remain active. Now, when you talk to people about the voices they hear, they're usually from trauma, life experiences, some difficulty and some other things that have happened in their life, or the voice of the society, coming from a lot of pressure and difficulty that people have had. So the thing is, if someone is gifted to hear and they can hear, so I'm bringing faith and spiritual health and mental health now. If someone is gifted with the ability to hear and they're a young child, if pressures of the world set in, they will definitely hear a voice, and they will definitely be able to hear. They'll be sensitive to things going on around them. And I think the huge question more is, how do you recognize, or how do you begin to, so like someone has a child that's hearing voices, for example, how do you begin to speak to that child and pray for that child in a way to make sure that the voice that is more, that has more power in their ears, the voice that is dominant, is the voice that they want to hear? Because we talk to people in mental health about the nature of the voice. So we say to people, if it's warm, if it's encouraging, if it's uplifting, shouldn't be too worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, if it's commanding you, telling you to do dangerous things, it's harsh, it's bullying, then we're more worried about those kind of voices, which we're trying to distract them, or we're trying to give medication. So the question is, can we change the nature of our hearing in a way to become the dominant kind of hearing we want? Because I believe that everyone hears voices. However, the volume of the voice is different. And people say, oh, that thing just came to my mind. It's all hearing. However, it's very loud when someone's got mental health problems, because there's alterations, so they hear it a bit louder. Pastor Banks, don't let me take you into another school of
no, but see, do you know what? I quite like this perspective, because what you're saying then is that, well, let me not assume. Are you saying that even with someone with a mental condition, hearing voices they can train to manage that and only respond and act out the voices that are much more, like positive.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
You can keep training the voices, and so it's not just about training the voices. Obviously, there needs to be work, which is where we come to wholeness. There should be work going on in the background with the difficulties, the trauma that the person has suffered. Because when you're working on that, it obviously tones down the heaviness of the voice. But that they will stop hearing voices, no. They will continue to hear voices. However, the nature and the degree can be, do you understand? Can be, I don't want to use the word altered, but can be worked on.
Yeah.
Start to identify the voice that you want to be more dominant and start to distract the ones that are affecting you negatively.
Yeah. So is this akin? Go on.
Sorry, I met a guy recently. He's actually Caucasian. He hears voices. He was given medication in the past, but the medication basically took away his life. He couldn't function. He was totally subdued, so he completely refused. However, he's put things in his life, checks and balances in place to help him understand the reality of the world around him. And what he does is things like, if he hears voices sometimes, he'll ask someone around him, like, did you hear this? He's basically put, because he said he would not deal with the medication. However, he understands that even with the medication, the voices didn't go away. So now he's living his life in a way that he's trying to understand the world around him, why he hears the voices, and what he can do about them, so that the voice of God can be dominant in his life. And this is gonna beat you. There's some people called, oh dear, it begins with a T. They're actually people who intentionally want to hear voices, and they do. So they put themselves in positions. They're called oh God, it begins with a TUP, something. I hope I'll remember the name at some point. They actually want to hear voices because they believe that it gives them an edge over other people in the world around them. So the thing is, if you can put yourself in a position to hear voices, I think you can do a lot more with voices. You just need the education, the power, the strength to understand that you have for me, I have a gift, and that I can actually use that gift in a more spiritual and benefiting way, and I can live a good life out of it. So if people can intentionally hear voices, I think you could do the opposite.
Wow, thank you. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So for people who think they have a mental health problem, I say think because it's a diagnosis, isn't it? So a doctor has to make that diagnosis. So for people who maybe are concerned that they might have something going on, how can they seek some help?
So I think if someone's concerned that maybe they have a mental health problem, don't diagnose yourself. Everyone has mental health problems. So let's do it this way. Majority of the symptoms that people suffer with mental health, every other people have day to day. At the point you get diagnosed with having a disorder is when those things don't pass. For example, everyone gets anxious. And usually maybe you have something coming up, you can suffer a lot of anxiety. And then after the event passes, you're calm again, okay? But when someone's got a mental health problem, the anxiety carries on and doesn't stop, or there isn't a reason why they're having the anxiety. So I just want to say, because sometimes the things that someone who's got mental health illness suffers, everybody else suffers it. It's the extent, the degree, the nature, and the duration that makes it an illness. And I'll say it's always safer for people to first talk about what they're experiencing, because you'll be amazed. There's a lady that I spoke to once. She told me what she was experiencing, and I advised her to go to a GP because I realized that she wasn't sleeping. And all they did was give her medication to sleep properly for 3 days. And up until today, it's been about 5 years now, the symptoms have come back.
Wow.
And so the advice is speak out on time. Talk about, don't go and read and give yourself a label. No. Talk about the actual experiences. What are you going through? I can't sleep. I've got lots of appetite. Just the exact thing that is going on with you is what you should talk about.
Yeah.
And honestly, when you talk about it very quickly, you'll be amazed. Talking therapists can do a lot. Trauma work can do a lot. Psychological therapists, counseling. There's so many things that you can get. Support can do a lot to help you come back. Because guess what? A lot of times, because people are sort of like keeping it to themselves, the pressure, the fear, all that mounts up, and then they become even more ill and get worse than they originally probably were. So the more you hide it, the more you keep it and tune into self, and you have this big thing on your mind, the more pressure you suffer, the more you affect your brain. And so my advice would be speak out. People need to speak out. Early help, early detection. There's something called early intervention psychosis. People suffer once and never again because they were picked up on time. Trauma happens. People go through stuff. But early speaking out, talking to someone. Don't be afraid. Just talk about what you're going through. Don't give your name. Share your experiences. Can save a lot of people.
That's good. Thank you. So don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. Talk about it. Okay. Now, when you're talking about training yourself to hear and to act out the right voices, as a pastor, scripture just came to mind. Philippians chapter 4, verse 8 to 9. So tell me whether this is what you're saying. If I put it from the scriptural point of view, when it says, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue and if there's anything praiseworthy, meditate or think on these things.
Yes, that is it, Pastor Banks.
Okay.
That is the scripture.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Now, I think there's some comments here. Thank you actually for that.
Very informative.
Yeah. We'll just want to take one or two comments.
Okay, so someone on YouTube, they said that for them, they'd like to look at so this is talking about someone that needs help. They would look at the bigger picture of the reality on ground and not entirely from a Christian religious tradition angle. As the moderate mentioned in his statement.
Moderator, that's...
Oh, as mentioned in the statement at the right, that might trivialize it. Yeah. Trivialize the reality of seeking for mental health support. In addition, there are simple steps to try to avoid, curtail panic, mood attacks, low mood, etc. Avoid overthinking. May God help us in all our struggles, situation, and
so we thought we'll read that out. Now, as we begin to round up, because for me and for us, really, we always try to bring a scriptural perspective to these conversations, because I think the big question is, does God see, someone who has mental health challenges differently than he sees, somebody with any other, physical ailment? And is God able to bring about healing in all those other scenarios as well? So the scripture that came to mind as I thought about this, and it's 3 John 1:2, says, "Beloved, I pray that all may go well with you and that you may be in good health as it goes well with your soul." So essentially, God is interested in our soul, and from a Christian point of view, we would usually put the mind or the mental health within the confines of the soul, and so if you're listening or you know someone that is dealing with mental health struggles or challenges, God is quite interested, even though the church many times might not reflect that, but it's God's heart, that we be in good health, that we be in sound mind, and that those issues that we're dealing with are dealt with. There's a place for prayer, and we should always consider that, but we should also always seek medical help. God uses all forms of ways to bring about healing for his children. and like Sister Tony said, it's, getting the help you need early on, that really helps. So thank you.
Thank you so
for,
much, sis.
for this. Any other comments or questions for, scanning young minds before we let her go? If there's none, I mean, the comments have come back anyway. People said you've done very well, and we can attest to that.
Yes.
Very informative, claps and all that, so thank you for that. We hope that we can have you back again at some other time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So that was scanning
Thank
young.
you for having me here too. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And absolutely amazing work you're doing. I've absolutely loved it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Okay. So as we begin to round up, this has been the conversation today, and I'm hoping that, I would like to imagine that I'm not just imagine, but believe that I will grow up to be, well, I'm already grown up, but in terms of compared to how our parents would deal with this sort of situations, that I would have a totally different perspective to this, and I'm hoping that would be your own experience too, because until we begin to change and embrace, people that have these struggles, we would keep, driving them further away from church. But these are the same people, like every one of us, that Christ died for, So, yeah, I mean, it's been a good session.
Yeah,
thank
definitely.
you for tuning in.
So I think I'll just leave with this. So it's a quote that I saw. So when I was looking up it, doing some research, doing some reading, and this lady said that she credits the church community with getting her through her mental illness. And I thought, what a testimony of a church community, and wouldn't it be great for us to be a community of people where we can support people in our midst that are going through mental health challenges, or have family members that are going through mental health challenges, to help them get through it, and to thrive, whilst they're doing that. So yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you all for watching, for joining us. So we hope that we'll see you again next week, 5 o'clock.
Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, Instagram. God bless you.